Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Mpho Ndaba. I'm a writer based in Johannesburg. That's just the title I often use, but I do other things as well. But today is not about me. Today is about us young people. So what we decided to do as Changing the Lens was to really think of how to create a platform to speak with other young people, but also ensuring that some of the contemporary issues in society, we are part of them. So I have a pleasure of welcoming a number of young people who are doing amazing work in their own countries. We have Yahya, who's from the Gambia. We have Derrick Mugisha. We also have Yahya Sowe and Funzani Mtembu. So just, welcome. I'm just gonna now briefly move on and have one of them take over and just introduce themselves and speak about what they do, the work that they do, but also why is it that it's important for young people to participate in debates as it relates to the US elections. So I don't know, Funzani, if you want to, to start.
Yeah, that's fine. I can start. So my name is Funzani Mtembu, and I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I'm an economist and investment analyst, so to speak, by profession. But I'm also an activist. I've actually done work around the space of feminist economy, just thinking and contextualizing around the idea of what does economic policy actually mean for the most marginalized in society, be Black women or Black people in general, and also just generally trying to understand how, what the economy actually means for the people. I've written a couple of articles on topics such as those, as well as on topics such as decolonization. And I've just recently been recognized as the Maiden Guardian Top 200 Young South African within the space of civil society, and of course, recognizing the work that I've done as an economic analyst and an activist as well, Pan-Africanist as well at heart. So much of my work has been guided by Pan-African ethos, and yeah.
Thank you, Funzani. Thank you very much. Can we quickly have Yahya? I'm really excited for you because we have someone from the West Africa who's here with us. Yahya.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Yahya Sowe from the Gambia. I'm a bachelor holder in Islamic Studies and also a YALIF alumni, journalist, and environmental activist. I'm also a newly elected youth chairperson of Kombosa district. That's my district. I'm the newly elected youth chair. Also the country coordinator of Art Day Network, the Gambia. So my work all along is all about environmental protection, biodiversity, and advocating for protection of environment between the schools, outgoing young students who are age of 5 to 10 to train them how to protect our environment. That's my work as of now.
Okay, thank you very much, Yahya. Derrick, can we have you over, my brother?
Yes, I'm really excited to be here. Hello, everyone. It's a good afternoon here from where you're connecting from as well. I'm Derrick Mugisha from Uganda. I'm a climate activist and also a peace builder. I work with Earth Day Network. I'm the regional director to Africa. And also I do my work with young people at the Uganda Youth Biodiversity Network, where I engage them in the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. My work has always centered to be around policy and advocacy, and I'm already excited to be here to discuss this topic because it has quite a lot to do with policy and advocacy at the same time.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome. Kola, can you kindly introduce yourself?
Sure, Mpho. Thank you so much for inviting us into this dialogue of yours, changing the lens and Vets. We really appreciate it. My name is Kwala Keswa. I am a social environmental entrepreneur. I'm part of, I'm an entrepreneur in residence at the South African Urban Food and Farming, at the South African Renewable Energy Business Incubator, as well as um, E&S Africa, which is the largest law firm in South Africa. Currently, they're under a pro bono client around IP. I'm involved in international relations under the BRICS International School, which I just graduated from. And I've also associated with other organizations, non-governmental and international organizations. So it's good to be here, and it's an interesting debate.
Okay, thank you. Now, you know, a lot of the times the conversations do take place, the debates do take place. I mean, I know that there are some South Africans who stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning wanting to watch the US presidential debate. But, you know, it's not even about the debate itself, but recognizing that, you know, the political economy globally is organized around power. And there are countries that are powerful. And more so when we consider the question of the environment, for an example, we see how there are delays in terms of, you know, some of the policy decisions that have to be made. You know, and of course, it's much complex than that. The role of private capital, the role of citizens, the country itself. You know, some leaders. I mean, particularly, I don't have to say some leader, but the case in the case of Donald Trump, he's been quite, you know, clear that you know, climate change, including other things as well, that it doesn't need to be prioritized. And of course, it's not just about him. It's the fact of the matter is that corporates are playing a major role in this. So the first question really, you know, to you, Funzani, and you can really take your time to answer this. There are a couple of guiding questions that we have for today. I'm really, you know, what is your sense? You know, what do you think that is this even something worth considering? This debate, you know, the fact that something is happening in the US, is it something that is worth considering as young people today? Funzani?
Sorry, I was muted. I do actually think that this is an important conversation to have, because I think historically we've seen how when something happens in the US, it actually implicates the rest of us. There's a saying that once the US sneezes and the rest of us catches the flu, right? So for instance, you look at what happened during the 2007 and 2008 financial market crash, or economic crash, so to speak. But so essentially, I do think it's very important for us to actually have a context of what is happening in the US and how that actually speaks to us as developing countries and countries that are not necessarily, or emerging countries, so to speak, right? And countries that are not necessarily developed, like underdeveloped countries and whatnot. So, so in a lot of times, I think my interest is always, obviously, as me being in the economic sector, I'm always interested in understanding how does, like, for instance, a trade war that just happened between the US and China actually mean for us, and how does you know, like, some of the policies that actually, it's quite, because for me it's quite interesting to see what Donald Trump is doing with the economy there, you know, and as compared to the notions that you know, neoliberalism sort of like give on us, like, right, like they actually impose on us, yet the US actually have the liberty to decide what to do with their own policies. We as underdeveloping countries and developing countries do not necessarily have the liberty to completely define and look at what we actually want to do with our own policies. So for instance, Donald Trump came in and started, this notion of trade protectionism. When you look at us, for instance, neoliberal institutions such as the IMF have imposed things like trade liberalization in our countries. But a lot of times we don't actually look at how that actually implicates our economy and our development as developing countries. So it's very important that we actually have all these aspects and actually understand the American context of the economy, but also what it means for us as well.
Thank you very much. Derrick, I'm going to move to you when it comes to this question. You speak about the UN, and one of the things that we have seen, and it's not just limited to, for an example, the WTO, and the particularly institutions such as the IMF as well. The point that I'm making is that a lot of the times in the past 4 years of Trump, we've seen him moving the US out of these institutions, right? Historically, multilateralism has been seen as something that is good in terms of how we resolve crisis. So now, when it comes to the question of the environment, why do you think the US matters, in this debate, like the question of the environment? Because, you mentioned earlier as you were introducing yourself that this is the work that you do, but does the US matter in all of this?
Yeah, definitely. The US matters, and it's really absurd that a president like Donald Trump doesn't really consider, being part of international, agreements and following them. He actually goes on to say, it's better that the US becomes an observer rather than just being, a signatory, or also implementing more so what these agreements talk about. And it's really a worry. For example, the climate accord and the Paris Agreement. Before he came to become president, the one he followed had already taken the US into the Paris Agreement and accepting even to set aside all the possible measures, because US as a country is not different from other countries in terms of being hit by a climate crisis. And if you see what has been happening with all the disasters that were happening in the cities, the New York and the rest of the cities, it also shows that they have human beings and people out there. You've seen the fires that were happening there, the animals that exist in those, in the US as a country. So, not being part of these agreements, it actually means that you're not yet able to do the actions that your colleagues or the rest of the countries are set aside to do, because that corrective bit of taking action is what we need as for this generation. If I take action, because you can't say, as a country, as Uganda, we are not going to mind about the climate crisis, but also when it hits, then you ask for foreign aid in other countries, and then you're not part of something that they're contributing to. So the US being part of these UN accords is actually very, very important. Not only with the climate, even the biodiversity one, the US is not part, they only come to be observers just to witness what's going around. But then why do you have to come as an observer, yet you're not part of a party? So it's better the US goes back to a party, because when you're a party, you have a chance to take decisions, you have a chance to, to vote on some things that really matter to you. That's why countries like China actually are part, because they they're going to be told, hey, you're China, you're polluting lots of, greenhouse gas emissions, but then you're accountable to it. What are you doing to it? And you saw China coming out to say, by 2050, we should have gone, green. We should have gone clean, the whole city turning to, clean energy. And then what's up for the US? And that's the example for African countries, because some countries in Africa will not be able to also do so, because they say, hey, a big superpower like US has not joined, so why should we also join? So we are yet to see more countries actually dropping out if the US is not part. And that's why we are saying, hey, US, can you go back to being part of these, UN agreements and discussions?
Kola, I want to move to you, and thank you, Derrick, for that. Kola, I want to move to you, and just in terms of solutions, right? Because Derrick speaks about multilateralism, but also, some of this important, like the Paris Climate Accord, for an example, its value and just how countries engage one another. But just when I was listening to you introducing yourself, you spoke about entrepreneurship. What is the value of entrepreneurship when it comes to the question of the environment? Trying to think of an alternative reality or future that we have to create, given consumption and destruction of the planet. and this is a question directed to you, Kola. What do you think the value of entrepreneurship is as it relates to this question?
For sure. Well, I think the value is huge, especially coming from the African continent, because I think we all pretty much know that Africa has the youngest population in the world at the moment, and a lot of Africa actually did, didn't really participate in the emissions, and a lot of what's going on we weren't really a part of. It's these other bigger nations like China and America who have actually been polluting the environment. So I think we stand an opportunity to actually show the rest of the world how to respond to such a crisis by engaging in green technologies, entrepreneurship. And this is, this is not a new thing. In Africa, we have always been ahead in terms of kind of innovation. In Africa, you find young people building tippy taps. You find them building windmills to power or to take water from the river into the villages. But all of this stuff has kind of been under the radar. No real exposure into the rest of the world. So this creativity is happening, but there's no business incubators and no proper financing, whether it's fintech or mentorship, that can actually allow young African people with the ideas that they have and are currently showing. Because I really think that creativity comes in a time of crisis. Right now in Africa, we're facing droughts. We're facing, I think it's going to be the most impacted out of climate change, in fact, the African continent. So like Africans, we innovate, we create, we want to find a way to survive this drought. We want to find a way. So lots of potential in terms of actually showing the rest of the world how to build back better, using the green economy.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. You are based in the Gambia. When it comes to the role of the US, and also, I want to take it a bit further, because a lot of the times when we have these discussions, we speak in binaries, right? You're talking about the US and in relation to other countries, and of course we recognize its power, and yeah, its power globally. But what are some of the challenges that you've had to deal with when it comes to the question of the environment in your own country, but also thinking about the role of the United States?
Thank you very much. Is like some of the challenges in my country we face in terms of environment. Sometimes we organize we have projects, school going projects, tree planting projects, cleanup projects. But whenever we approach the United States embassy in the Gambia, they always turn us down because they don't have any other interest in environmental issues. So it is a challenge. It is a big challenge to us because countries like United States, if they have no interest in protecting environment, what are they trying to say? Because they are other on development countries to achieve their goals. So if they decided to withdraw themselves, or they decided to not to have interest in environment in other countries, this is a challenge to us compared to UK. When we have programs, our UK ambassador of United Kingdom always attend our programs, and also give us something which we can use in our programs, the likes of cleaning materials and other things. But whenever you went to US embassy, even partnering, they always withdraw because they said they don't have any interest in that. So that is a challenge. And US being US being a country, superpower country, and not part of this Paris Agreement or environmental protection, I think it's not a challenge only in the Gambia, but also it will be a challenge for other countries, because we all know US, how big they are, how when they want to help, how are they? But I think it is important for us and important for US to build some interest in terms of environmental protection, biodiversity, and others. So these are some of the challenges from my end.
No, thank you very much. So this is what I'm going to do going forward. I'm going to have a series of questions. You don't have to answer all of them, but the way you're going to answer it is that I'm gonna go in a particular order. You know, just so Funzani, Yahya, Derrick, and Kola, just in that order. You know, it's just, if there's any question that speaks to you and the work that you do, I'm gonna kindly ask you to just deal with that one question. And if there are questions at the end, which some of the people who are part of this session have, based on what you would have said, then we will take it from there. So now, you know, so for an example, if we consider, and it's a question that we already dealt with, the question of the United States, Donald Trump, and pulling out of the US climate, the Paris Climate Accord, you know, what does that mean for you as a person and the kind of work that you do? There's also a question around the fact that, you know, we're talking about Trump and the US at this moment, but if we look at the US as a country and its history, you know, a lot of the times what I personally see is kind of trying to separate the history of the United States in thinking about it in relation to Donald Trump. But there's a mistake that we make there, where we don't look at the US as a superpower in and of itself. It doesn't matter who is the president. So now the question that I have then, based on that, is that in the recent presidential debate, you know, there was a question around the banning of fracking, for an example, and that the Democratic Party's nominees were unwilling. They've given an indication that they're not going to be banning fracking, and we know its impact on the environment. You know, so, and what does that then tell us about the US itself? If you are interested in that question, you can really deal with it. There's also a question around the impact of your own country as it relates to the environment. For an example, if you are interested in that, you please deal with it. You know, I'm thinking of South Africa, the fact that in Southern Africa, or in Africa as a region, South Africa's impact is quite bad, but we are speaking in binaries, the United States, and you know, in relation to, in relation to the US. So, you know, is there anything that you want to say on that, please do say it. Other than that, if there's anything that you want to raise in the context of this debate, you're also free to do so. Funzani?
Okay, so I'll just speak a little bit, because I think I went through, I was going through kind of like comparing, you know, Trump and Biden. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Biden is. So I was kind of like looking at essentially like what their interest is when it comes to, you know, climate change and what they actually want to do and whatnot. It's quite interesting because obviously, as you just mentioned, you know, Biden actually said, you know, like they're not interested in actually, what do you call, banning fracking,
yes.
Yes. Right? But also at the same time, he's one candidate that actually said that he's willing to dedicate about $2 trillion into you know, climate change and looking at issues that are around climate and environment. So for me, it's kind of like it sounds like a contradiction of sort, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm very much like questioning of both the candidates, essentially. I mean, Trump's unwillingness to also do away with fossil fuels and kind of like still wanting to stick by that, in a sense, it does kind of like, so for me, I think there's a sense of kind of, you know, the US wanting to look progressive, but also being kind of dishonest about the progression that they actually want to do. So I don't know what to trust exactly, because there's so much information that they're all saying that sounds contradictory also, right? So in that aspect, I just feel like there's so much that's going on from that perspective. I'm not an environment specialist, but I do read up, of course, on different issues that are affecting the world and whatnot. And just for me, looking at just the difference in how these two candidates are trying to, look at different issues. For instance, also even in the economy itself, right? Trump is for tax cuts, like individual and company cuts, which is quite problematic considering the inequality issue, the income inequality issues that we have in the world, throughout the world, right? Whereas Biden also, and on the other hand, is actually advocating for an increase in taxes, particularly also company tax to about 28% or so. So like some of these issues that, that kind of differentiate them, makes them different, but also not too different, like I'm just finding myself in a position where I'm actually trying to make sense of Biden, and also kind of seeing, some kind of similarities, within, even though they're not necessarily overt, but my analysis of Trump and Biden, in a way, it's like, are these people actually very interested in progress and being progressive? Some of Trump's things like policies and whatnot look somehow, but also at the same time he's saying another thing. So like, it's always, for me, it's always a question of like, where are we actually going, and are we being duped to these things, and is this actually like a space in which shouldn't we be entirely critical of both of them, and shouldn't we be entirely critical of the electorate system in its entirety, right? So yeah, man, I think that is my contribution to some of the questions you asked.
Thank you. Can we move to Yahya?
Okay. It's like fracking. It is, to me, to my understanding, it is not good in to the environment and people, because health-wise it is not. So it is rather unfortunate. This processing can go wrong, and if the oil or gas wells are not built studied enough, they can leak and contaminate groundwater. So float back. So water can contaminate streams and water supplies. So the rush into the fracking has not kept pace. So this, to me, is a challenge, and is not good to our environment, because sometimes fracking is damage wetlands, and fracturing operations are already industrialized, wild and rural. So landscape. So this is something which, to me, I don't support it. Whether Biden will not ban it, this is a threat to our environment, and it should be banned. It's like miming. Miming is they are all environmental challenges, and they are not. They all are not good to our environment. So to me, my contribution is that my suggestion is, let them ban that. If they cannot ban it, but they minimize it to make sure it is not it not harm many people. Or that's my little contribution on that.
No, thank you very much. I think what I'm getting from you is that, fracking itself is not, it's not good for the environment. It could, and we've seen it in Flint, Michigan. There's people who have been, trying to get clean water for years now. Can we move to you, Derrick? You can deal with any question that I've presented.
You said one on like as a country like Uganda, and also about fracking. I think those are the questions you raised. Okay, yeah. just looking at generally, because we're discussing US elections first. If you saw the debate and you're an environmentalist like me, first of all, you'd first say, now, who's saying the truth? Who's confusing? One of the things I didn't find factual about Biden, he wasn't clear about what he's going to do for the environment. He promises all, to support, the Green New Deal. And then you're saying, shall not ban fracking or hydraulic, it's similar like saying, I will not steal. And then the next day you're like, I think I support stealing. So you're not being straightforward on what exactly you want. And if you have been following his debate on the same topic, I think he was asked, I think the same question in Pennsylvania, and again, even Harris, the vice president, or the one who's supporting him, and Senator Harris also said, hey, I repeat, Biden will not ban fracking. So what it shows to you is, still confusing about the same topic. And you saying it's going to be done not where people are, because some states are really densely populated, but saying it's going to do it at some basin, in the far outskirts of, the cities. It's also still a threat, because even if you do it from anywhere, as long as it's on land, because you say he will not, he's not banning it on federal land, something like that. And so this whole debate about him and Trump, it looks like we aren't getting the exact thing that we want, because I hope, like, he has to be clear about the statements on saying, hey, we're going to be banning, we're not going to ban, and he has to defend it. As well, you have to say, I'm supporting the Green New Deal, I'm not supporting. Like, let's be realistic with what's happening and know that the people are watching, and the elections are just, a week or so ahead, and they're coming. So people are judging on what exactly you tell them and what you're going to tell them. But from the history of the United States and the ambitions that we have, as environmentalists, as people want to see change, is to just hope that they can all realize that they're already aged, like they are years ahead, but then they are young, Americans that are coming up, and as well the whole world should know that there are young people that they're going to leave behind for this planet. So what type of planet are they handing over to the next generation? Because I'm sure he'll serve like 1 term or 2 terms, or Trump will come back for the 2nd term. But again, if his activities are not handled on a daily basis, if we don't take actions to stop any of the pollutions or anything that's going on, it's the same thing like what was not done in the last years. Because committing is one thing, but again, implementing what you committed is another thing. For me, I would request that they don't only commit towards saying, hey, it's a great deal. All these are political statements, because they're trying to win voters to their side. What I want to see is a clear plan on how to address this. You saw Trump saying, when asked about the global warming issue with the climate crisis, he said, to some extent, but also, I think the forests were not managed well. So what does that tell you if you're a voter? It just shows you he's still a denier. Of course, he has never accepted. Even if he accepts, he says, to some extent, the greenhouse gas emissions are causing all these things. But again, it's the forest management. But we saw what happened. So the other countries as well, outside my own country, we are trying to push the climate change bill. It has taken years, because even our government has just discovered oil recently. And it's what they are going to utilize for the economy, because they're saying, if Uganda now, the next year, 2021, and the rest of the years, we start utilizing this oil, and we have started putting the tanks ready to Tanzania, where they're going to be refueling all these things, refining and all these things. So it's still a threat everywhere. I think all presidents globally should realize what kind of planet they're giving us back to us, as the young generation coming up. And also, they have kids and have grandkids as well. So they should. It's now a survival issue that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And personally, as someone who's listening, there's a lot that I will come back to for everyone who's spoken so far. Yes, Paula, can we just come back to you? I've put a number of questions down. If there's any particular question that you want to raise in the context of the debate, you're more than welcome to.
For sure. I'd like to possibly address the question around on a local level, what is it that one is doing? Sorry, I'm just trying to get the question. Okay.
So in the context of, yes.
So it's the context of my own country in terms of developing alternative ways, right, for a global economy. I think, one of the most important things right now for the global South, and I'm talking especially for for SADC and Southern Africa is actually to look for new narratives, to move away from the West first and foremost, you know, to kind of realize that, you know, we are binded through colonization with them and, you know, our institutions, etc. But the West has never been kind, and it's been more of an extractive relationship, whereas, you know, we can look at new possibilities and opportunities, change the narrative, and start actually working with the East more, you know, and actually building industries ourselves. I know that DTI runs a program called the Black Industrialist Program Scheme under the Department of Trade and Industry. And really what this program wants is young people, young Black people that have ideas of how to industrialize in the country. You know, South Africa is still a newly industrialized country, but now we have this opportunity, this open window of the green economy. You know, this push for sustainability, and we can really look at it as an opportunity to build relations with Singapore, build relations with India, build relations with China, build relations with Russia, and you know, we know Asia has big populations, you know, and some of the countries are very progressive, and they're actually looking for new ideas. So you know, I feel like there needs to be kind of like an emancipation away from the West, and realizing that you know, maybe America, you know, they'll never want anything good for Africa. Trump called Africa like a shithole or something like that, or like, you know, like he doesn't actually see Africa as need, and I don't know, like you know, where he's actually coming up with that, because obviously Africa is very crucial to America in terms of resources, non-renewable resources, metals, and so on. Very crucial for America and also for China. But China realizes it, right? China realizes Africa's potential and is getting closer and closer to Africa. And yeah, I see, you know, an opportunity for us young Africans to engage in technology transfers, you know, to engage in obviously identifying products and identifying methods, and then protecting those via, you know, IP, trademarks, patents, design applications, whatever the case might be. And then you look at blockchain technology to transfer our knowledge, our information to Eastern countries like Singapore, like China, you know, like Russia, to actually start manufacturing some of these ideas that come from Africa. And so really improve the global perspective of what Africa can actually truly offer, despite actually resources. And yeah, there's a huge opportunity for agriculture as well. But then I think, yeah, let's see how the debates unravels.
I guess that's your way of saying that you're done speaking. So I mean, so far there's one question that has been raised. You know, it's a comment, but really it seems like and it might, I think, apply to Funzani and you, Kola, particularly around the fact that, you know, Africa must do its own thing. And I know, Funzani, you didn't say that, but you also alluded to just how you know, the US is pushing for protectionism, but at the same time, if you look at the trade policies globally, you know, we are African countries, and just generally, not just African countries, there's a push for neoliberalizing the economies, right? Ensuring that you know, you open your borders and you trade with other countries without really putting much restrictive policies in place. But my question really, you know, as you know, and considering that question underneath in the comment section, is that shouldn't really the focus be on working on undoing the system? And this one is much more radical, I think, based, you know, undoing the system in the sense that, you know, do you want to create a parallel system that still does the same harm to the environment, for an example? Or are you looking to really ensure that when it comes to conceptualizing the future and thinking about alternatives, we need to think of something that has never been done, maybe it has been done, when it comes to really thinking of valuing the environment and not necessarily always thinking about growth and because a lot of the times I get the sense that we are looking to replicate what they've done. But at the same time, the question that should also emerge is, surely we also need to develop, you know, we want to grow the economies as well. But just for both of you, I'm going to start with you, Funzani. You are also open to addressing the question and the observation that has been made in the comment section.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very much true, right? That, you know, we should obviously start thinking about our own ideas of what African economies should actually look like. So, for instance, part of the reason why I raised this idea of trade liberalism, right, is because if you look at South Africa, for instance, much of the trades that we actually do, like much of the imports and exports that we do is not necessarily within Africa, which in and of itself is problematic. And so the reason why these institutions sort of like impose these liberalizations on us is because they know that you know, the powerhouses of the world actually are the ones who are benefiting from extracting from African countries, right? But African countries do not benefit from each other themselves because we barely actually ever trade amongst one another, which is a problem for me because I feel that the importance is to then come up with, you know, like there's this African trade thing that they're actually still discussing. It's been discussed. I haven't even followed up recently on it, on how far it is. But that African trade kind of what do you call implementation, so to speak, was kind of to address the issue that, you know, African countries don't trade with each other, but it's very cheap to buy from African countries because of the liberalization. So there isn't necessarily trade protection, particularly because all these powerhouses want to benefit from us, right? So it's very important that we actually think deeply about various issues and what they actually mean for us, like in the for environment, for instance. You know, we know how capitalism works, and part of the reason why we find ourselves in this position in terms of environment is because of how capitalism actually wants to exhaust even our environment itself, right? These ideas, for instance, you look at what's happening in Kolobeni in the Eastern Cape, the mining issues that capitalists are trying to like, you know, try and extract like, you know, try to, what do you call, explore exploration, yeah, or like in the Eastern Cape and also in Venda as well. But people are actually fighting against all these things, right? But it speaks to how essentially like the world has dictated to us on how to think about our own issues and our own problems. And part of what we spoke about during even FISMA's fall, if you remember well, was decolonization and actually rethinking and reimagining what the economy is for us, what education is for us, because what is education if it doesn't have if it doesn't give us the liberty and the and capability for us to actually think about our problems and coming up with our own solutions as African people, right? So I think it's quite important that we address these issues across board. I can think up of a lot of like issues, right? Like even law, for instance, just generally everything, right? And the reason why we are often quite oppressed and our ideas are quite oppressed oftentimes is because of how we are also burdened by the debts that we have towards the IMFs and all these other financial institutions, because of those debts actually like come with certain conditions, right? Structural adjustment programs and all those things. They really hinder us and suppresses our own ideas and thinking about what we can envision as an African liberated economies, and African liberation in its entirety.
No, thank you very much. That was quite succinct and very clear. I don't know, Kola, if you have something to say on that, the question that has been raised.
Yeah, I'd like to actually agree a lot of what Funzani is saying, and I find her, really interesting. You know, her perspective. You know, in terms of actually trans Atlantic or trans-Sahara trade between West Africa, East Africa, then also obviously trans trade between Southern Africa and North Africa, and actually have Africa building Africa, you know, because actually we don't owe anything to any of like these guys, and whatever kind of trade that we engage in, we always find ourselves at a back foot, and I guess she explains why, because of all our debts and etc. And you know, engaging in such negotiations and transfers on a back foot is never good. I mean, business, you can't do business on a back foot. You need to be doing business as equals. You need to come and say, no, you know, I'm at a point where we can mutually benefit from each other here. So I think we need to, really look at ourselves as Africans, and how do we kind of build relationships, international relations amongst actually African countries. And you know, I think that says a lot in terms of actually our embassies and you know, our departments of foreign affairs. I mean, where's the attention being paid? You know, our expenditure for these departments, is it going to actually focus on embassies in America, focus on embassies in China, focus on embassies in India, whatever the case might be, in England? Or are we actually focusing on in embassies in Zimbabwe, in Ghana? Are we focusing on embassies in Ethiopia, in Gambia? You know what I'm saying? And then actually build these kind of dialogues through delegation and treaties and understanding, and then also look at moving away from fossil fuels, you know, because actually we're not contended. I mean, we don't contend in the fossil fuels debate, because as Africa we haven't really emitted so much fossil fuels. We've emitted the least of any continent. So actually we need to build a new economy based on resources, the resource economy. We need to look at, you know, what resources we have amongst each other and how can we trade them in an environmentally friendly way. But again, what am I saying? Because this is not new. You know what I'm saying? Like, Africans been doing this thing for such a long time. Africans have been living indigenously with the land, with the animals, being able to engage with other cultures, with other tribes from various, I mean, you know, let's just look at Africa before invasion, before Asian and European invasion, and look at what Africa was actually doing. What caused the Indians to come here? What caused the Americans, the Europeans? Why did they all choose to come and exploit slave labor resources from us? You know, because we were actually the ones, you know, taking out the amazing artifacts and jewelry and gold and diamonds. And, you know, to the point where they were like, okay, let's just steal it.
Yeah.
let's just steal it, because these guys obviously have like such an abundance of these resources and everything. So we just need to kind of remember, we need to get back
Yeah.
to ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot that is being said, more so when it comes to building alternatives, right? But also recognizing the history of Africa for what it is, without without necessarily sugarcoating it. And I think, the point really is that even in today's world, you look at the US, for an example, there's an impact the US is having on the planet, in the world. If you look at per capita consumption in comparison to, a single person in the African continent, it's incredible. And the impact on the environment as well. So now, when it comes to Derrick, what are some of the things that you are hoping for? And you also more than welcome to begin asking questions. I'm referring to people who have taken their time to join us in this session. You're more than welcome to start asking questions and become part of the discussion, because the principle that I always advance is that conversations are necessary, and it's a conversation more than anything. And this is an approach that I've also tried to take in this interaction that we're having. So you can begin asking your questions. But Derrick, in the meantime, while we wait for people to start asking questions, what are you hoping for? Just trying to imagine, think the outcome of the elections in the US, but as it relates to some of the stalling and the delays in some of this global accords, and the question of, for an example, the Green New Deal as something that could be adopted and becomes really monumental. What are you hoping for?
I think I also start from a question before I go to the one you're asking. I think I'll first also react on the question on the economy, because it's really crucial. And when the comment someone raised, actually, some bit you didn't see was on the US dominancy in terms of dominating, Trump. Maybe he could be right by saying, hey, we are not going to do this because I'm protecting the US dominancy. I cannot say no, yes, because, it's his humanity, it's his will, and it's his country. But something we should realize, it's not about who's dominant or not. Actually, if it was about dominancy, Africa would be dominating in every age and everything. In terms of food, Africa is a global food basket. We all know how much Africa produces in terms of food. But just that we don't always selfish. We're not greedy about any other continent or any other thing. That's why someone says we always wait and then we follow, and it's not that we're just following. It's just that we are trying to show an example that it's not about being greedy about things. We have fallen short and we have become, beggars of our own honesty and, being calm. And I will not say we are just not calm. We had a life, like, Zola said, we had a life before these guys came in. But now we have to live the present. What's happening right now? What's happening right now is like we are living in a world, in a planet that money is the first thing, and we forget about life. I would say, if you ever gone to a forest to take a photo, or to go to a lake to take your vacation, you know what life is about. Life is about exploring nature. Life is about, moving to another place and you find the beauty. If you go to a city that is not polluted, I don't know how you feel. I don't know if you're driving around and you keep driving around, you feel fine. But when you're on a bicycle, how do you feel as well? So I think it's not only be about dominance. If it's about dominance, actually, Africa can't dominate. The only thing is, we have been hit short by times of debts. Africa suffers debts. That's the problem. That's the mistake that, our countries, our presidents are doing. We have become beggars, because every time we want to construct a road, instead of designing our own sustainable plans, we end up asking for money from China. Now, China will say, for me to be able, because they know Africa won't be able to pay back, or countries in Africa won't be able to pay back. So how do you have to pay back? Is you're going to sacrifice a forest so that, I pollute, and then I'll give you money in terms of carbon credits. You guys plant the trees in Africa. But again, when these things happen, so what happens is in the coast of Tanzania, and was it You know what happened in Tanzania recently. So
Yeah.
I would just say it's not that Africa does not care or is not, you know, willing to also be that hard. But to the question of what I hope for in terms of the US elections, I'm not supposed to judge who's going to vote. I'm not a voter in the US, but I hope whoever comes back as president, Donald Trump comes back as president, or Joe Biden, you know, comes president. It's not just about only the US. It's the image that we are shown in terms of, you know, the global democracy and also, you know, humanity. What I want is to see that all countries in this whole world prioritize things that we discuss. We're not wasting time going to the US meetings, to the UN meetings, to, you know, to the African Union meetings and saying, hey, we have agreed to do business like this. Actually, we need to have one united world where something that happens in the US, someone in the US knows that it's affecting someone deep in Ugandan village, deep with the person that he can think about. It's not going to be time for us to say, because they're superpower. Actually, I would say Uganda is a superpower because we produce the food. We can't stop producing food and we see what happens in the rest of the world. The same happens to South Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania. So it's not only about what I hope. For me, what I want to see going forward is actions. It's not about words. We have spoken, our elders, our forefathers have spoken, everyone has seen we have not been on a path towards development. If it's greed, can we fight greed? If it's about unity, can we unite? Can we sit on the table? It's not about you having a missile. Something I always, you know, when I talk about Africa, I'm always passionate. So what we have always been seeing is that people are putting budgets in armory. Africa is not ready for war. We are not ready for war. Divert that money towards restoration, towards bringing back wetlands, forests, you know, boosting our agriculture sector, you know, try to make sure people are getting into, you know, living in harmony with nature, you know, ecotourism, you know, the beauty of fashion in Africa. The things we have to invest in our money, not the guns. We are not enemies of one of ourselves. We actually supposed to unite and work together. That's why God created. And when he was creating, he didn't create guns. And if you guys saw, he just created guns. He created birds, animals, forests, wetlands, all these beautiful things that we are destroying today in the name of superpower, in the name of I don't care, in the name that, you know, you're becoming a climate denier and saying Africa is not a superpower. So let's destroy and take out whatever it takes through debt. I think something has to change. So I'm saying, yeah. So maybe, yeah, you could also want to come in here as well.
Did we lose Mpho?
I'm still here. Yahya, can you come in here? If Yahya doesn't come in, there's a question that I would like to pose. And so when it comes to, oh Yahya, yes, there you are.
Well, sorry for that. What was the correction? Because I was a bit tired.
So the question really is, you know, what do you think there could be alternatives? Like, what are some of the things that can be done in terms of Africa itself?
But I think this is very simple, and let us believe in ourselves, because we should not be always dependent on other countries. So Africa have everything what it takes to develop any country. We have all the resources. We have everything. So the whites were here. They stole our resources and went with them. So now is the time for us to also bring back what our stolen things, our stolen resources. So we should not depend on anything, any country now. We should be ready and work hard to make sure what we have in our continent, we have a base, we take a good use of it. Africa is not poor. Africa is rich, but is rich. But our problem is our leadership. our leaders are failing us. So this is the small contribution I have in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the question that I wanted to ask, and
briefly before. So you find that what Yahya is saying in terms of the leadership. I know the US is going to the elections. There is a campaign that we are. I just given a case study of the Vote Earth campaign that we are doing, at Earth Day Network. Something, calling out people to vote early, people to vote, because it's that vote that really matters. If you don't really turn up to vote, that's a problem with African countries. People always say, I will not vote, I will not do this, I don't care about politics. Then knowing that everything is tied into the politics. It's the leaders that are putting in office that are going to decide the things that are taking this, this continent forward. So one thing I'm going to recommend is whenever there is an election, whenever, there is a debate, please do turn up and share your views. Whenever you keep quiet and people tend to vote the bad people into governments, into government positions, it's the decisions that you've been seeing in Africa still. The question of leadership, it's the mandate of people to vote the right people into office. Talk about corruption. If you're to address corruption in Africa, start by the vote, start by the ballot. Put the right people with the right manifestos. If each president globally has a climate plan, I always emphasize saying we should have a climate manifesto, an environment and climate manifesto, that before you vote them, ask them if they have one. If they do not have one, the same will happen, that they will not do anything even when they're in office. They'll instead sell off a forest.
Are you still there, Mpho? I think we've lost Mpho. Yeah, I think we have.
Oh, I think he's trying to reconnect now.
But I think there's questions, so maybe one can go through what are the questions here. And I think I'd like to definitely agree with Moloki in terms of what, and in terms of saying, Trump definitely, against climate change, definitely doesn't want to make any type of environmental laws because he's busy trying to dismantle any progress that Obama did make, or when the Democrats were in power. And so, really in the United States, you're looking at a situation where, one party makes progress, another party comes and dismantles that progress, based on ideology and I guess just not really liking each other. I don't think Trump really likes Obama personally. I don't think they have a good personal relationship. And so the question posed, definitely, I think Africa should develop its own technologies, gas, oil industries, or maybe not even gas and oil industries. I think we just need to kind of develop new industry, solar panels, wind. We need to look at other alternatives besides oil and gas. Not stick by the rules that were actually forced upon us, rules that we did not choose. IMF, World Bank, World Trade Organization, whatever the case might be, they all kind of impose these rules that we find ourselves, in debt and so on. And we really don't want to work with an America that exercises hard power, in terms of trade wars and stuff like that. We want to actually work with countries that exercise soft power and delegation and negotiation. So, in terms of actually, in terms of developing our own industry, that should actually have a positive impact in our economy if we do it positively, against all odds, you know, against debts and everything like that.
I think Zola,
Okay.
something we have to be straight on point about. You see, we have the alternatives, but I think we have also made harder for access, because if we make access really easier and we start, you know, I think access will be the first step if I talk about alternatives, because they are really there. But you find that solar, you can have a solar panel or so, but also, you know, the quantity of what it produces, and then the spare, again, you have to import, again, that transport of you going out, again, going to China to bring in the spare parts. I think the access question has to go forward to what African governments and also globally what they're talking about in terms of, alternatives. But also there are alternatives that people can make for themselves, like things to do with, clean cooking. You can have a clean cooking stove at your home. You can do these things yourself, So at times you don't need to only, talk about utilizing firewood. I know in Africa some people are still using firewood. I don't know about other countries, but other countries are using coal instead. So, we just have to make sure we talk about alternatives, the access, and also making sure that we start doing by the least that we can. Because committing the big things and someone will tell you, I can't access it, we can start by doing the simplest things. That's what I would say, add on to that.
Okay, thank you. So this is what I want to say, right? When it comes to, and please keep the questions coming. Someone agrees with you, Derrick. One thing that is interesting in this discussion is that, yes, we are talking about the United States. There seems to be a theme around the environment, right? Because most of the people that are in this panel are environmentalists in different ways. But also, Funzani, you think of alternatives, and in a way, when it comes to the question of the environment, it is a question. It's about the alternative. It's recognizing that something went wrong, and there's a mess that we have to deal with. But when it comes to South Africa, and I might take flag for this one, but I'm open to it really. When it comes to South Africa, and the continent, how do we ensure that we're not just talking about, again, I spoke about the binaries earlier. I spoke about the US and Africa, right? Us and them, and it's fine because it's factual, it's true. But when it comes to South Africa, the impact of South Africa on the environment in the continent, it's quite bad. How do we ensure that we are also accountable? Because we want to build forms of solidarity with other people from different parts of the continent, right? But how do we ensure that South Africa is accountable as well? Because it's part of the global economy. Funzani, you want to take this one?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not in the environmental space that much, but I'll just try and attempt to respond to that question in the way that I see it. So, I think obviously, solidarity is important, and South Africa also has a tendency of this arrogance, right, of being the US of Africa, so to speak, and a tendency of not actually recognizing itself as part of the African continent, as though it exists in isolation of the African continent. So I think it's quite important that we actually recognize how South Africa's positionality in the context of Africa, and also taking accountability in terms of what we have actually allowed to happen to us as a country. So I think much like, all these other powerhouses are very much comfortable in knowing that there will forever be, like, there is a South Africa that is willing to do certain things for it, and a South Africa that has, South Africa, I think, is actually is the biggest, has the biggest financial market, so to speak, right, in Africa. So in a sense, it does have like a lot of implications, even in terms of mining, in terms of like what it does to the environment in its entirety. So I think that it's important that obviously we take into consideration that positionality as South Africa, and also taking into consideration how do we actually do better, right? So one of the things that was happening So one of the things, no, like I did not mean like in terms of reach, but I'm saying like in terms of the financial market, like the most active financial market is the South African financial market, like the JSE essentially. So that's what I meant, not necessarily like in terms of wealth, because I do know that Nigeria and South Africa are. But yeah, so in essence, what I'm trying to say is that can we actually recognize our positionality as South Africans, and also our relationship with the UK, like Europe, for instance, and America as well, but mainly with Europe, that tends to kind of, in a way, compromise the rest of Africa. So for me, I think it's a good point in saying that we should take accountability as South Africans, and actually being aware of our positionality in the context of Africa.
Thank you very much. Kola, you want to come in here? You have to unmute yourself, Kola.
Unmute.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't actually against anything she said.
No, that's what I'm not saying. I'm saying that when it comes to this question of South Africa in relation to the continent, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think, we need to improve our standing in terms of how we see ourselves, actually, I think we're going through an identity crisis within ourselves as South Africa, because we've come from such hard times in terms of apartheid, and of recent also there's a lot of like obviously we have like an immigration crisis, and we're still trying to define ourselves, like what is a South African, what is South Africa, and are we actually that different to Africa, or are we similar to Australia, or whatever the case might be. But I think we are Africans first, especially if you are an African. Like Bantu speaking people, we know our heritage, we know our history, that we actually come from the Great Lakes. We know that we actually come from Africa. We only part of South Africa just because Europeans came here and started a republic and created non-existing borders that actually you can't actually pinpoint, and so those borders are also mental borders. We've formed these mental borders against our own African people to say that, oh no, you this, you that, you from Zim, you from Botswana, you from whatever. But actually, we need to get our identity back. We're suffering from huge identity crisis, and as soon as we realize that actually we're not European, we're not Western, we're not like Australia, we're not like England. Instead, the more we simulate ourselves and see ourselves as these types of people, the more they'll find means to kind of exploit us, and because we kind of we take ourselves there. We see that as kind of like the highest level of achievements to be associated with these countries. And I think there's a lot of potential that South Africa has to be intermedium, or kind of like exactly a medium between the East and the rest of Africa. I see us being a potential kind of trade routes where we have big ports such as Durban and Cape Town and PE, and we can actually go into the rest of Africa, build solid relationships, negotiations, and actually facilitate exports, facilitate mentorship, and facilitate funds, actually play a proper role of, if there was a so-called Africa, South Africa that's the United States, we need to play a proper role in terms of actually sharing some of our progress with with other African countries, and then becoming a route of trade, linking with Asia, linking with Brazil, linking with our partners within the BRICS, which are emerging economies, which are the new emerging economies, the top 5 economies of the world. 3 or 4 of them are within the BRICS nations: China, Brazil, China, Russia, India. That's top 5, and Brazil is just behind at 8. And we're looking at the UK falling out of the top 5 GDP countries in the world. We're looking at Holland also falling out, the Netherlands out of the top 5. All of the countries that actually colonized us are all falling back. They're all falling behind. And actually the colonized countries like India, now they're the ones at the top. India, they're almost number 3, or pushing towards, they're about to knock the EU out of their standing in terms of GDP. So in fact, what are we doing? I think we're making them relevant by even having conversations like this. I'm not saying it's not necessary, but I'm saying as so long as we study and kind of like look at these countries as superior, which actually they're not superior anymore. You know what I mean? They've actually lost their superiority. So it's just, checking our identity, getting back to our Africanism.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I don't know if Derrick, you want to say something when it comes to this. Do you have something to say? Otherwise, I would like to just move on to then, ask you, all of you, if there are no questions, all of you to just kindly speak to some of the things that we must look out in terms of the work that you are doing, campaigns that you're running, projects that you're working on, and how we can be of support for one another. I know that the context of this conversation is the US elections, but I think it's very much relevant what the way it turned out, because we are not, it's not a new realization, but we are appreciating the fact that there's a particular relationship that the United States has with Africa, right? But also the West and just the global South and the North in general, if we think of those kinds of relations historically. We are appreciating that relationship, and we are getting to a point where there's a resolution, which is to say that something different must be done. We are young people who are spread across the continent. How can we use our networks to also potentially think of supporting one another and advancing these conversations further? It just doesn't become one of those interactions where it's just a tick, box ticking exercise rather. What kinds of projects that are you currently working on that we can jump in on and assist where we can? Derrick, you want to take over?
Yeah, I'll start from the thing, something about South Africa and the rest of the other countries. I think one thing we should all start working on is removing African borders, and so it becomes really an African continent. I always see there's so many things that happen in South Africa. I think was it last year or so where people are killing themselves, and it didn't really show the African that we want to see, and the rest. I know Nigeria and South Africa have so many kind of relationships, but I think by 2050 the projections show Kenya will be having much driving economy, because Kenya's silence to work strongly on their economic ties, and also to see that they accept and drive each and everything. That's why you see that even now offices of the UN bodies are always wanting to go to Kenya. It's because of the peaceful it's only when they go to the ballot that violence always comes in, and the true African face of the ballot paper looks at. But I would say it's just that we all need to open up Africa now. It's not about SADC, it's not about East Africa, it's not about West Africa, it's about a united Africa. And that's how we shall have a united Africa that works for everyone. On issues to do with the programs that we do, one that really we have been working on with the US team, or the US DC office is on the Vote Earth. We all know the US is going to the polls soon. So we have that campaign on Vote Earth. So I'll share the links so that you can really look at what we're trying to do. But what we're trying to do is emphasize that people are voting. They can vote by email, by mail, by any sort of way in which they're being directed to vote, and also that they can vote early. We're also encouraging young people that are voting for the first time to actually show an example that they've been waiting for this, for this moment to change, the history of the US, or to make a difference and to be a voice, because it's through a ballot that your voice will be heard. Another project that we're working on is a project on food and regenerative agriculture. So that project always looks at, eco foods, promoting, food that is eco-friendly, food that really does not destroy the environment, and also making sure that people are feeding on indigenous food, not only feeding on processed food each and every time. And that's why the malnutrition levels in Africa are rising, and we are silent about it. You recently saw the state of food in the whole world, saying 890 people were hungry. And when we are hit by COVID, that shows they're even likely to go beyond that. So you all know why food is very important, but also the type of food that you eat is actually also very, very much important, because it contributes to your health and your nutrition levels as well. The other project we do is on Mobilize You program, where we mobilize university students globally, and we engage them on exchange programs where they can discuss the different, environment campaigns, projects they can work on. Most of them are interested in waste management. They share perspectives, because that's how we shall unite this world, is if we start sharing experience. I'm in Africa, you're in Asia, you're in Europe, and then we all share practices that work for everyone. So the other one as well, we do work on. We have a big campaign that always comes out, which is the Earth Day. That recently we're talking about climate action, and now next year we are doing the build up to 6 months ahead on Restore Earth. So the biggest campaign that you've all been seeing, the UN coming out saying the next decade is on ecosystem restoration. So we are doing a project on restoring our Earth, and then the 22nd of April next year, the theme already has been set out. It's going to be restoring our Earth. So, all these programs that we do, we have my Feature My Voice ambassador program that we're doing. We have ambassadors we selected all over Africa. There are around 30 ambassadors that we're working with, very young, very vibrant young people that we saw are creating a change in Africa, and then we wanted to expand on their work. So we take them through capacity building, mentorship, we connect them the rightful people, resourceful people, and they share their perspectives on how they've been able to make it up, because most of them are entrepreneurs, most of them are into policy, some want to become teachers, some want to start up non-profit organizations, but then educating them on how to do it well, showing them best practices, all much, and these are things that we're working on. So you can always check out our Earth Day Africa page, and then that's where we share always, but also share the links to our main website in case you want to check out any other programs that we do. You're always welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Funzani, can I move to you in terms of just some of the things we must look out for on your part?
Okay, so I'm currently working, I'm about to I'm part of a book, like I contributed to a book, so that's about to come out not so long.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that book actually, because I think that's actually going to be the first kind of like pop-up publication of mine, like a book publication, because I've never actually been a part of a book. But that's happening very soon. I just forgot its name. Sure. But yeah, so I have that book coming up. But also I'm part of the COVID-19 People's Coalition. So I'm one of the economists that keeps on obviously thinking around COVID-19 and just generally like economists who are activists essentially. So we are running, currently I think the campaign that's kind of like we're pushing is an extension of the special grants that the government actually gave to the people during COVID-19. So we are trying to push for the government to actually extend, because those grants are supposed to end in this month of October. So we're trying to push the government to actually extend paying the social grants probably continuously, and just generally activisting around the basic income grant and like looking into that. So yeah, basically that's mostly it. And yeah, of course, like the writings that I've been doing, I have a blog, so you all must check out my blog, funzanimtembu.com. But yeah, so that's where I'm at currently.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward to the book. Exciting, exciting. And comrades, you must do the right thing and buy the book when it comes out.
Yes, an
Yes.
academic book, please do.
No, yes, yes. Yahya, do you wanna just touch on some of the projects you're currently working on?
Thank you very much. It's like I have a lot of projects on my table. Among them is we know I live in a area in my country where we have a lot of fruits, mangoes, pawpaws, watermelons, oranges, and we some of them get spoiled. Almost 50% of them every year get spoiled. So as part of my project is to preserve them in another 6 months. So that's why I open a place where I have a skill center. I I train young girls who are dropped out from school, who are dropped out from school because of financial resource. They lack financial support. So I train them on tailoring plus sexual and reproductive health, also a process in food processing and preservation. That's one of my projects. And secondly, I have a school going Green Up Schools project. So far this year we planted 7,886 trees so far. Among them oranges, fruit trees, Malenas, mahoganies. So far, that's Green Up Schools is we visit schools all from my end, the entire country of the Gambia. Each school we have a green up club there where we engage them, we train them how to have this nursery seedling.
I think Yahya is struggling with connection. Funzani, your mic is off. You have to unmute.
I was saying I thought it was my connection.
Yeah.
To make sure we have more nurseries at the end of the day, we provide them. I also have a GP child. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Also, among them, we have a GB child education projects where we will be supporting 100 children in West Coast region of the Gambia. We'll support them from their nursery level, giving them school bags, books, uniforms, and also paying some of their school fees of the university. That's our projects we launch right now. And also the biggest one is the Young African Leaders Award. Last year we launched a first ever Young African Leaders Award organized by Africa Youth Architects. So it went successfully. So this year also we have almost 300 applicants around the world, different categories. Already we have our 30 finalists. Now the award ceremony will take place in Rabat, Morocco later this year. So that's our biggest project as of now, and gives a child education. Also, what we do, we plant trees everywhere. We go to coastal cleanings. We pick up plastics along the road. Also, that's some things like that. That's what we do in my country, and so far so good. We managed to reach out to 126 schools in the country.
Yeah, you seem to be doing well. I mean, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And Funzani, I see you were agreeing the entire time and just amazed. It really is. Yeah, you want to say something, Funzani?
Yeah, no, I wanted to say it's so beautiful to hear that like young people are so involved in their communities, because I think that's the one thing sometimes that we tend to forget. So most times we just like want to move away from our communities. So listening to Yahya is so inspiring in terms of like the work that he's doing in his community. So we appreciate you, Yahya.
Yes,
Thank
And
you.
thank you for the work that you're doing.
yeah,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes. Kola, what do you have for us, my brother? What are you currently busy with? What can we look out for? You have to unmute yourself, Kola.
Yeah, I'm saying it's actually, there's quite a sum of things, quite a lot of things that one is doing. But you know, just coming straight off my head, I'm engaged with about a year-long research project that we'll be doing with the Club of Rome and Penn State University Sustainable Institutes, as well as Derrick. He's going to be also involved in that, and I mean, he's one of the leaders of that whole thing. There's more than about 200 plus students from across the world. It's, you know, universities, it's a consortium of different universities from across the world. So yeah, it would be really nice to see, you know, what Derrick and the moderators have been talking about and how that is going to go about. I'm also busy with mentoring SDG businesses through Facebook. There's a sustainable development goals kind of group on Facebook, and you find that there's entrepreneurs, and it's open to mentorship. So I'm actually mentoring 3 Africans. One from Uganda, another one from Namibia, another one, I don't even know actually where the other one's from. But yeah, you know, since I am an entrepreneur and, you know, entrepreneur and resident at the South African Renewable Energy Business Incubator, I do have the knowledge and give. And also you'll be very surprised when you mentor how much you actually learn, and how much you actually want to steal the ideas of the people that you're mentoring.
and hopefully you don't, right? Because that's not what we want to do. We don't want
Yeah.
that.
No. I've got my own ideas that I'm currently working on. I'm trying to put various products into the market. The market is still very new, the green market. So, you know, I think in the next 5 years, I think I'll be seeing progress on that. But right now, you know, a lot of people are still kind of geared towards, you know, the capitalism system, as well as, I guess, you know, working with the BRICS nations in terms of building dialogues and international relations, and fostering things like tech transfers, right? Like, if I am mentoring people from Africa and they want their products internationally recognized, you know, one needs to kind of facilitate a process of transfers of technology to other nations. Where, I mean, I know that we've been talking a lot about, you know, help selling things in Africa and helping Africans through Africa. But actually, you know, the reality is that the factory is China, you know, where if you want to build something cheaper and have it actually sold in mass production quicker, you really want to get it to China, where the factory is, you know, and where the population is. So, you know, a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is building relations with China, Russia, India, in terms of actually getting some of our technology out there, protected. You know, we don't want another Yahoo or Huawei, sorry, from Apple. You know, we don't want any kind of stolen intellectual property, but we need to do it in a soft power. We need to use soft power. We need to use, you know, methods of diplomacy rather than anything else. Yeah. So I think that's currently, I mean, I'm an artist as well. So I'm building sculptures out of waste, out of bottles, and you know, trying to sell art you know, I think the aesthetics, you know, we need to get people to actually look at waste and say, wow, it's beautiful, in order for them to actually recycle it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, thank you, everyone. I think there isn't much, in terms of the questions. I know Yahya did say that he's actually working with Derrick in the Gambia, that he's part of the Earth Day network as well.
I think I'm working with everyone, even Zola, with the Club of
That's
Rome.
that's the funny thing. And Funzani, I hope
Yeah.
you don't feel as if you are excluded.
I
The
really
point,
feel left out. I was
no.
about to say that I
I
feel
think
left out.
Funzani,
Everyone is working together except for me.
yes. You
No,
also
no,
invite me. I'm the central point.
exactly. So do you know
Yeah.
what we can do, right? Like I said, the point of this really, in as much as and so we had a discussion about the US. We hope the elections go well. And I know there's a one question that has been on my mind the entire time, which is to say that how do we um, ensure that we build forms of solidarity with people from the US? I mean, if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, there are Black people in the US. If your focus is to advance Blackness, it's fine. There are Black people who are in these movements. There are also people who have been advancing the Green New Deal, for an example, who are currently based in the US. How do we ensure that? My concern is that I don't want us to have a conversation in binaries that, oh, the US. Within the US, there are comrades with whom we can work with. As is the case now, we are noticing that Otola is working with Derrick and Yahya as well. So the point that I'm making is that how do we ensure that we work together, we bring one another into each other's projects, because that's how we build solidarity, right? That's how we move forward as young people. But I guess it doesn't have to be a question. It's just a point that we have to do more as young people, and we need to begin going beyond borders, because if we have Derrick here, and we have Yahya here who's based in the Gambia, and we are based in South Africa for most of us, that is good. It's good because it shows that we care, and we are willing to go beyond these small borders and just begin working with one another. So that's that. I don't know if there's anything that you have to say as closing remarks. First of all, I'm not gonna say anything. I think what I've wanted to say has been said. That today's engagement, we've achieved that, I think, in my opinion. But I'm just gonna leave it to you, Funzani, Derrick, Kola, and Yahya, to just give your closing remarks, and then we close it. But do stay in touch with one another. That's what I can tell you.
Okay, so from my side, I'll start. From my side, I really just want to thank everyone for their contributions. I think that y'all are doing amazing work. I'm forever impressed, actually, when I meet young Africans, because I know that we are all just so busy trying to make sense of our world currently, and just trying to make sense of ourselves as well in the world that continues to sort of, oppress and suppress us, and just listening to everyone's ideas about what they think about the world, whether be US or environment or the economy, is always such a refreshing sight, and also very insightful. So I'm very thankful that I actually sat through this panel with all of you guys. But yeah, I mean, I think also like just driving the message home to say that, like, let's continue having these conversations. It's very important that we hold each other, like hold each other up, and just having space for these kind of conversations to happen, and also most importantly having them happen across Africa. I think that's a very important aspect, and perhaps that's also one way of us kind of like moving towards seeing this united Africa actually coming into fruition. So yeah, man, like let's keep in touch, and let's continue working in our respective fields, and being exceptional as as I've seen throughout this conversation. And yeah, man, and let's continue to fortify and hold space for each other.
Thank you. Derrick?
Yeah, I'm also equally, very glad, first of all, to thank all the panelists. I think from your experience, I've quite learned a lot, and then your perspectives. I hope all the viewers or people that have been following this discussion, as attendees, have also benefited from our discussion. We won't say what we said was all. I'm sure you could also have had perspectives. I always want to say we are sorry if we touched your nerves. Most of these discussions are so touching and emotional that we at times have to hit your candidate or here or there. We discussed politics. This is politics. So, but let's just keep united. Let's keep all this. There's a saying that says the planet is one, but the world is not. It's because people say they live in Asia and forget, they're human beings like us. We are black, you are white, we are black. We just have to take all ourselves as human beings, as people of this planet, as and make sure that by 2030 we are all working for one thing: sustainable development of this whole world. So thank you very much. I hope we can keep in touch for long and connect more and more, and let's see what the future has for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Kola, do you want to give us the closing remarks?
For sure. Yeah, I'd definitely like to work more with everyone that's here. I think we should all be sharing maybe numbers and contacts. I mean, of course, Mpho, I knew you and Derrick, and we will continue working together. And yeah, just like shout out, Mpho, man. Like, we're really grateful, man. I think you're a true leader in a sense that, you didn't let one summit that we all went to, that, vague summit that we don't really know what came out of it, but you actually made something out of it. You pulled us all together and said, let's work together. Let's actually build bonds within ourselves. Let's not wait for other institutions to do that. So, like, really big ups, for actually doing that. And thank you so much, Fitz, the clever boys. You guys hold a big reputation of being the highest ranking academic institution in South Africa, and maybe Africa, I don't know, but clever boys, thank you so much. We really appreciate for hosting this. And let's connect. Funzani, I'd really like to hear more about your analysis on investment and how we can, plug some investments into Africa, etc. And yeah, man, we connect. I know Derrick, if you in his network, it's one network, we will eventually connect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yahya, do you want to say something as we close?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for organizing this such. Although I'm a bit because always if your boss is in the midst, you don't have to speak. So as far as I am concerned, Derrick is a mentor to me and is my boss in this work. So I should not I should not talk about this is a beauty of youth work, and I'm so happy for bringing us together. This is an amazing thing, and the world is connect. Let's connect, and we cannot achieve the Africa we want without coming together as one. So let's come out as one to build the Africa we want, and by the grace of Almighty Allah, when we come together as one, we will achieve the Africa we want. So let's connect and have a nice and hope to organize more in future.
Yes. So just before we go, I would like to thank you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for willing to do this. As changing the lens, that's what we want to do, to have conversations, but also to come up with practical solutions, whether it's in terms of policy, submissions, content creation, because it's small things really that lead to change. Sometimes we shouldn't despise this things like interactions like this one. And then I would like to thank Rose. Rose is here, and Rose has been incredible. She works at the Center for the Study of the United States at Wits University. And she's the person who's really been how do I say this? The brain and the engine, and I don't want to say an engine because I hate combustion and you know, yeah, I think the industrialization and all of that. But the point that I'm making is that you know, thank you to Rose, thank you to you as a person, but thank you to you as part of the Center for the Study of the United States, and do send our regards to the institute as well.